LOBA tiene unos
Anyway, LOBA
antiguos. Nosotros tenemos
began a while ago, actually almost 30 years ago. And we are actually coincidentally connected to the people in this panel geographically, because it started at the Metropolitan in New York, so pretty close to the Carnegie Hall, 30 years ago, more or less. And it was a program in which teachers were asked to turn their classrooms into an opera company. And, well, it varies, but we do it over a full school year. And we do it not as an extracurricular activity, but in the classroom with the form teacher. So that's our connection with New York, which is pretty big. And with London, too, we have a connection, because that's where the Write an Opera is, which is a program which is very similar. And it was set up at the Royal Opera House, I think just a few years after it started at the Metropolitan, although I don't know as much about that. And actually with Venezuela, with Caracas, we have a special connection, because the Salarte Foundation, which is one of the patrons of our activities, was established by a woman from Venezuela who is called Tania Capriles, and she's sometimes actually taken us there to Caracas to speak to people from the system and to share our dreams and our experiences with them. LOVA is a project that we carry out with musicians and with children, and so I felt that the best way to tell you about it was to talk to you about Cristina and Raúl. Cristina is a teacher, and Raúl is a 7-year-old opera impresario. And actually, he was really the PR manager for the opera company. And you're now going to have a chance to listen to how he describes his work in this very brief interview. And Cristina is a teacher. She's a wonderful teacher, like so many other teachers I work with. She teaches in a public school in Becerril de la Sierra, which is a village here in the mountains near Madrid. And it's a small town. It's very pretty, very small. And the school is called Juan Ramón Jiménez. And one day, Cristina heard me or heard somebody talk about this project, and it connected with some things that she'd been wanting to do in her classroom for a long time, and she heard about a training course at the Teatro Real here in Madrid, and so she signed up for this training course, which takes place in July. It's a very intensive course, 8 days, a really very demanding schedule. And initially she joined with a group of people who have been taking part in these courses at the Teatro Real for 4 years. And then during the summer holidays after the course, when they're exhausted, and it would be very easy for them to say, well, I'm just going to go off on my holidays and forget about everything, they decided to take this course with us and train something that will then enable them to run this project for a full school year. The course gives them an overview of how to create an opera company in all of those aspects that no artist really specializes in, because one of the things that I'll be covering today is how musicians are experts and specialists, even though they're not really experts and specialists in any of these things that they work with children. And so Cristina, after the summer, went back to her classroom and told her students, first day back at school, how would it be if we were to become an opera company, if we were to write our own compose our own opera from scratch, and divide up the professions that are needed in an opera company. And then in May, June, we put on a performance Of course, by then you won't need any adult help because you will have learned everything, and you will be able to put on those performances yourselves. And we will have a show for your families and friends and schoolmates. And well, this is the course that Cristina attended, and this is her classroom. After overcoming a similar challenge to the one we've just carried out, in this case they had to cross an imaginary river without falling off the chairs whilst sticking together. For some reason there's fewer kids on this photograph than there actually are in that classroom generally. And this was last school year. This company called Les Enfants de l'Opéra, I'll explain a bit more about them in a moment, is a company that was established last school year. And so during the first months of the school year, they learned all the things that you need to know to compose an opera and create. And there was two parallel processes. On the one hand, of course, you had to learn skills and learn about each of these professions, because of course you have to realize that there will be journalists, there will be electricians, there will be a production manager, there will be musicians, singers, composers, makeup artists. Generally, we're speaking about 12 different professions, and there's many ways to explain to the kids in the classroom. And this is part of the process, which is to get them to understand the underlying spirit of creating an opera. And in parallel with that, they realize inevitably how difficult it's all going to be, what a challenge it is going to be for their class. And they also realize that they have to stand together and work as a well-coordinated team in order to succeed, because in the shows, they won't have their teacher or other adults helping them backstage or playing any instruments or doing anything. They'll be doing everything themselves alone, and they'll be proving that they can. And the process takes various steps. It's one that's the choice of professions. They sort of present a job application, and they're given the job. And once that's happened, they start producing the opera. They start production and the composition and so on. Les Enfants de l'Opéra is a great name, and Joachim Flieger, who was person responsible for educational activities last year at the Théâtre Real, loved it because he's French. There's a French girl in the class. When she came up with the name, everyone else thought it was really cool, so they said great. And the acronym was NUPO, which means Children United for Opera. And once they had picked their chosen profession, these photographs are taken one day when I was there with Vicente Galasso, who's here too, and they told us about each of their objectives within their chosen profession. These are the artists, these are the composers, the team of composers who will also be playing the music, carpenters, stage set people, or girls in this case, and the lighting people. And these are the lights that they've designed and made themselves. PR and marketing. You will see Raúl as an example of a PR man in a different company. Makeup and costumes. Production manager. And for a full school year, that's what they do. How? They spend approximately, because of course each teacher decides what the format and the timing and the steps they'll follow will be. There's some general recommendations that they can follow if they wish. And so for the whole school year, and I'm not just picking up my phone. I'm using a very useful tool which shows me that I'm not actually overrunning my time. They prepare this show, which in this case they performed at the Teatro Real in the Gallarre room, which I'm sure many of you know. It's that small hall in the upper story of the Teatro Real, which has been opened for a few years. And at the end of the show, the project continues. You have to realize something that I think is true of many other educational projects, and that is that these are not projects that are carried out to produce an outcome, and based on the quality of that outcome are deemed a success or not. This work is work that Cristina chose, and from day one in the classroom, it produces the educational outcomes that she was looking for as an educator in her classroom. Anyway, as part of this process, a really special day, of course, is the day of the performance, as is what comes after. This was June 10th, the performance. And on the following weeks, in some cases, a month or a month and a bit after, are equally important to day one, March, December, April, whatever. Because they had a blog as an opera company, and they posted all sorts of comments, and it's wonderful to read the things that they said and they wrote. But I'll show you just something that Andrea said. She said, yesterday we showed adults that although we are small, we can do great things, creative, imaginative, and beautiful things. I was happy and excited because yesterday was a special day. What's small is big. We are children, and we have done something great. And you can, if you really want to. And we wanted to make an opera, and we managed it. Andrea was one of the musicians, one of the artists. Anyway, as you can see, Loa is not particularly about orchestras. And yet I was saying to Íñigo, and they have a 7-year-old director thinking about how to bring the audience in and how much you should spend on the jugs or the mugs, and whether it's cheaper to get 2 colors for the logo, but on the T-shirts it looks like it's 3. And it's not really about orchestras, but I think when you asked us to come, it was because there are things that we can share with orchestras, which can be applicable to orchestras too, and which make this project particularly important. And there's 2 of them. One is that this is a project that's chosen by the experts in education, that's the teachers, and they decide to carry it out in their classroom for a full year. That's hundreds of hours and tireless work, because they have to come up with a lot of things. And even if they've done it before, each year the project is different, so it is hard work. And that's a very basic ingredient, because education experts are in the classrooms. In Spain, there are over 600,000 teachers. And even if we were very modest in our ambition and said, say, 1%, that would still be 6,500 teachers who would be able to show us what can and should be done in a classroom. So that's one part of it. And another is the fact that this is a project in which creativity is everything. It's all about creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit, whatever you want to call it, and each profession has its responsibilities. And there is one thing, it's not a term that we use so much because it sounds like something from psychoanalysis or something, which is empowerment. It sounds much better in English than it does in Spanish. And so it's about empowerment of
dejar espacio para que sean los niños
these
los que se
kids,
hagan
giving them the
responsables
space
de su
to be
aprendizaje.
responsible for their
No
own
quiere decir
learning,
abandonarlos
which
a
doesn't mean
que
leaving them to their own
lleven a cabo su
resources,
aprendizaje,
but
sino que tiene que ver más con
it's more
respetar
about
sus enormes
respecting
capacidades que tantas
their
veces
enormous
quedan
abilities, which
diluidas
are so often
en la
diluted
rutina
in
del
the
aprendizaje
routine of
de lo que siempre se supone que tenemos que aprender.
classroom standard
Muchas gracias.
learning. Thank you.